Hello, I'm Harriet Isaacson, and I will be your instructor for the next 3 hours on working with sellers. I look forward to sharing information with you on working with sellers or working for sellers. We will address what is the difference there, how RECAD does make a difference. Let's look at the goals for this class. We want to enable each one to identify steps in working with the seller to price their property and then to market their property. Some of our objectives today, we want to be able to prepare for a listing appointment, including designing a marketing plan. We want to be able to give a listing presentation and discuss any property disclosures that are necessary. Also, as in all cases, we want to be able to apply fair housing and antitrust laws. What are the laws regarding property disclosure in the state of Alabama? Let's talk about those in this session. Now, if we're going to work with sellers, we need to be able to find the sellers. So, how are we going to find them? One of the very first ways to find them is to think about your sphere of influence. Now, in prospecting classes, you have had information on sphere of influence, but let's think about what truly is your sphere of influence. These are people that are relatives, friends, acquaintances, those that you know that would possibly refer a business to you. Now, you're going to find as you get a little bit further along in the business that no matter how influential you are with them, they still would not refer a business to you if they have a relative or a very close friend maybe that was in the real estate before you got into real estate. So the sphere of influence is going to be changing, but we're going to start out with those that you think will actually be referring business to you and then adding to that as we go along. Another source of sellers would be the FSBOs, the for sale by owners, because the for sale by owners many times do not sell their houses, and they do end up listing their houses with other people, with agents. So we'll talk about those. We want to talk about the expired also. Why are there so many expired listings on the market? Maybe it is because of the fact that the house was overpriced. Maybe it's because the house was not showing too well, and the sellers were not willing to make the changes or to update or to stage the house in such a way that it was inviting buyers to buy the house. So the listing expired. Is that a possibility for finding a seller? Absolutely. Because you could come along as the second agent or even the third agent, and that seller will listen to you in many cases where he might not have listened to the first agent. So expired listings are a great source for listings. Now, open houses. Why do we have open houses? Well, sellers think that we have open houses to sell their house. And truly, we do try to sell their house off of open houses. But the real reason is that we're going to find prospective buyers and prospective sellers, because many of those prospective buyers that are coming to see the house at open house are actually going to have a house for sale. So they may buy this house, or they may be a prospect to buy another house that would be similar to this one, maybe in the same neighborhood, but they also have a house to sell. Now, another way would be to look at opportunity time. Up next, opportunity time, whatever your office might call it. And that is certainly an opportunity to be there to answer the telephone and to pick up on a seller that might be calling in. Many times we think that every person knows real estate agents and they would know who to call if they wanted to sell their house. But that's not necessarily true. So think about the fact that if you are taking time on the desk there in your office, opportunity time, you will be the one to have the opportunity to pick up on that seller that is calling in, or the seller that walks in the front door and says, I want to sell my house. People have a built-in desire to refer a business. So this is the reason that we're going to go back and discuss a little bit more about sphere of influence. It's your very best source of referrals. And as you go along, you're going to be adding your satisfied customers and your clients. These are going to be wonderful referrals for you. But we've got to ask for referrals. And certainly the way that we would ask for referrals is really to put before the sphere of influence here a note when you send them a note asking for referrals, or when you're talking to them on the telephone, or when you're talking to them in person, when you're asking for referrals. It might be something like you see them at the grocery store, and you say, by the way, do you know of anybody that wants to buy or sell a house? Because I sure could use the business right now. I've sold all of my listings that I have. And then when you're writing them a note to thank them for something, and everyone likes to receive notes. So writing them a note and then putting a P.S. Do you know of anyone that wants to buy or sell a house? You're putting in their mind the idea that you want them to refer a business to you. And it's not unnatural. So you need to make sure that they get the message from you on a continuing basis, almost to the point that they might repeat it back to you sometime. Oh, I know. If I know of anybody who wants to buy or sell a house, I'll let you know. So anytime when you're talking to them in person, on the telephone, or when you're writing them a note, let them know that you do want the referral business. Now let's think about the fundamentals of a referral system. You've got to build that database. The database is going to be that sphere of influence that we've been talking about. It's going to be current clients that you have, or current customers that you have. It's going to be past clients or past customers that you have had. And then we want to think about this being your golden source of continuous leads. We get started with a list, and that is going to be changing, as we have mentioned just a little bit earlier. We'll continually be adding to the list, but we also will be deleting some, because all of them are not going to refer a business to you. What we've got to think about is when we have developed this database, we have got to continually stay in touch, and don't let them forget you. Because if you let too much time go by that they do not hear from you, then they're going to forget you, and someone else is going to step in there and take your place. One of the things that we must always focus on is that your sphere of influence is going to be the most productive prospecting that you could ever do. So this is the one that I highly do recommend to you, and many speakers will recommend this to you. Now, in talking about listing FSBOs for sale by owners, one of the things we've got to do is to build rapport. We don't want to ever ask for a listing from a FSBO. They do not think that they need us. That's the reason that they have put their house on the market themselves, because of the fact that they think they can do it themselves without any help whatsoever. But you know what? They are thinking also, I will include a half of a commission in here, and therefore if an agent who is working for a buyer comes to me, I will go ahead and let that agent show the house, and I will pay the buyer's agent or transaction broker agent to go ahead and sell my house, but I'll pay them the selling commission, because we always think about commission as being a listing commission and a selling commission, a two-part. So when we are beginning to establish a rapport with a FSBO, we never want to ask for the listing. We want to let them know how much we really would that we care about them, and then they're going to get the message that you really want to work with them, but we're not asking. Let's ask to preview the property. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, would you be offended if I came to look at your house and just preview your house? One of the things that they're going to say occasionally, well, I'm not going to list it with a real estate agent. Well, that's okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. I just want to become very familiar with all the properties that are for sale in my neighborhood. And therefore, I would like to be able to preview your house. And then if I do have a buyer client that is interested, I'll call you and see if there's a possibility that you would let me show it to my buyer client. So you're giving them every reason that you want to come in and see the house. And truly, one of your ulterior motives is that later on, if they don't sell the house themselves or an agent doesn't sell it for them, we truly do want to go ahead and be the one of choice, the agent of choice that they call. But we're not asking. Now, stay in touch with them. One of the things that we find is that a lot of agents will contact for sale by owners one time, or maybe twice, but that's it. But do you know that actually there's going to be at least 5 to 7 contacts that you need to make with the sellers before they will ever give you a call or will have enough confidence in you or trust in you to go ahead and call you when they are ready to put the house on the market with an agent. There's ways that we can stay in touch with them. One of the ways, I might be at the house after I have previewed the house, and I know that the house was built before 1978, so I might say, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm sure that you know that since your house was built before 1978, that you would have to disclose to any buyer that there is a possibility of lead-based paint hazards in your house. Well, they probably don't know that. In all probability, they don't know that. So they're going to say, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, at this particular time, that's a golden opportunity for me to say, well, let me drop back by your house tomorrow afternoon around 4 o'clock, and I'll bring you a brochure that will tell you all about lead-based paint hazards and what you must do in disclosing this to any buyer that buys your property. Because truly the sellers, according to the law, do not have the right to sell the property without first disclosing to the buyers that the house was built before 1978 and that there is a possibility of lead-based paint hazards in the house. The buyer then decides for themselves if they're going to get an inspection or if they're going to accept the house like it is without any inspection on lead-based paint. Now, you may have those brochures in your car that very same day that you're talking with them. But don't go to your car and get it right then, because you want to be able to show up at their house the very next day, and they're going to see your face, they're going to hear your name, and they're going to think how great that you came back to give this brochure to me. They're going to remember you. And that's what we want. We want them to remember us, and we've got to show up, let them hear our name, let them see our name badge, and also make sure that they do know who we are. Now, another thing that you could do that would be a service to those for sale by owners and would help them to remember, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when you do find, let's put it in those terms, when you do find that right buyer, do you have a sales contract that you would get them to sign? Well, they might say, no, I was just thinking about getting an attorney to draw that up. Well, that would be fine too. But if you would like, I can drop back by your house tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, a time in the future, and bring you a sales contract that you could just fill in the blanks. What you're doing is that you're offering to give them a generic sales contract, not one that belongs to your company, but a generic sales contract, and that would be a real service to them, and they're going to remember you. Stay in touch with them at least 7 times, and you can always find reasons to go ahead and get back in touch with them. Excuses, reasons, whichever one you want to call it, but you're making the effort to get back in touch with them, let them hear your name, see your face, and certainly they're going to remember you. Now, thinking back to what we first said, a lot of people that go out after the for sale by owners never get the for sale by owners to list with them. Why? Because they don't follow up. And it is staying in touch at least 7 times. And sometimes it doesn't take that long. But if it's a long term, where they're going to want to keep the property on the market themselves for a good while, then yes, you'll have the opportunity 7 times to go back. And if they haven't listed with you in 7 times, well then you may want to go on to another. But staying in touch is going to be the key.